So, Kal Kadosh, morning, we're going to speak about Parashat Lech Lecha. When we're going to speak about this week's parasha, I thought of speaking about the importance of building our personality, building what it is ourselves, forming ourselves towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, why exactly is this so important? Because there's a machloket in the Gemara Masechet Nedarim, when we were talking about that Avraham Avinu was running after the Melachim, it says over there that he took 318 men. We know that 318 men, Rashi already brings down, there's actually a machloket, whether it was actually physically he took 318 men, or what happened is that it was Eliezer, because the numerical value of his servant, Eliezer, was 318. The Dat Zekerim Balei Tosafot actually says something incredible. We started a shiur on the Dat Zekerim Balei Tosafot, on the order, on the parashiot, and he says something incredible. Really what happened was, Avraham Avinu did go out with 318 men. But then he told them, anybody that's afraid, please go home. Just like that's the halachot of normal warfare. And then everybody left except for Eliezer. So the Eliezer, his servant, right, he actually stayed behind because he wasn't afraid of his averot. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham Avinu, you stayed on your own. Don't worry, I'm going to give the strength of all the other people into Eliezer. So now it actually forms that both of them were actually true. He went out to war with 318, but at the end it was only him and Eliezer, right? According to the Dat Zekerim Balei Tosafot, to answer up that it's true. Both of them in the Gemara, they're both 100% accurate and truth. But now what happens is they come out to war and they start killing out all the different people, right? And they killed out all the kings, and then they come and they take over the kings. What was the warfare? What was the weaponry of Avraham Avinu? So we once spoke about this, if you remember in the past, right? Mauricio already said it in the picture, right? What was it? He used to throw, whether it was kash, right? Which is basically earth or straw. And they used to turn into arrows and into swords. So basically the entire concept of missiles or warfare started by Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was even much better because nowadays a missile could cost you $70,000, right? There was a whole thing about that, about the Jews, right, in Eretz Israel, that they're coming and they're doing this, the David's Project and all these things, like
Iron Dome.
What?
Iron Dome.
The Iron Dome, and they come and they start shooting out, but every single missile that they're sending us costs $30,000, and every missile that we're sending back costs $70,000. So who's smarter? You understand? Obviously, we have to think about another type of defense that's not going to cost us so much money every single time we're going to send a missile out, right? But Avraham Avinu was the best of that. He took earth. You pick up earth from the ground, you take straw, boom, all of a sudden missiles, goes and kills them out. Not bad, no? But that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says it turned into arrows and then turned into the different projectiles that came and he killed them out. Perfect, okay, fine. Now what happened exactly? All of these kings, they recognized HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they recognized Avraham Avinu. They all made this big bama, this big, we're going to say, the bama is like the big stage where they put Avraham Avinu on top and they told Avraham Avinu, you are our God, you are our master, you are everything. And there Avraham Avinu says, is there lacking a God to the world? Is there lacking a master to the world? You have Hashem. What do you want me for? Hashem is the one that does everything, not me. So therefore Avraham Avinu proclaimed the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to all of them. Now the Midrash says that they actually even started believing in Avraham Avinu. Why? Because don't think that if people are not going to believe in miracles, a lot of people didn't believe that Avraham Avinu survived the Kivshana Esh, the furnace with Nimrod. Even though it was an episode that happened in front of thousands and thousands of people there, that they took Avraham Avinu tied up, bound up, and they threw him into the fire, and all of a sudden it consumed the ropes. And he let him loose, and now he's just walking around there in the fire, right? People didn't believe it still. But then what happened? They saw the miracle that happened to Sedom. Sedom started sinking in a type of a quicksand, in something that it started sinking him in, and it was impossible to take him out. When Avraham Avinu started walking by, miraculously it took him out. When they saw that with their own eyes, they believed that, wow, if this miracle could happen to Abraham right in front of our eyes, that we're seeing that everyone just got out, so then also the fire could have happened. And they started believing it. And then the question that we ask is, so 1 second. So if it's like that, because there it says that immediately afterwards, they went to Emek Shaveh. Emek Shaveh means a valley which was equal. Equal, we thought, went in the actual, it was even. It was leveled out. No, equal means they were all equal. They were all on equal terms. What was the equal terms? That they all accepted upon themselves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the question that we ask ourselves is, if right now they all accepted upon themselves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then what happened? What happened that a few minutes later, right, we have the story of Sedom. Think about it. Parashat Lech Lecha is the war between the kings, Avraham Avinu. At the end of the parasha is Brit Milah. The beginning of next week's parasha is Sedom, the destruction of Sedom V'Amorah. What happened to Sedom V'Amorah? They were so evil. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said we have to destroy the world. We have to destroy them. There's nothing left. They have to completely destroy Sedom V'Amorah. So the question that we ask ourselves is, what happened? After such a little time, all of a sudden Sedom V'Amorah went downhill. Ra'im v'chata'im la'Hashem me'od. They were evil and bad, wicked in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And not just stam, me'od, a lot. What's going on? Right now, they just did teshuvah. They just promised they're going to keep HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says, how do we understand this exactly? Even Sedom understood when he said, Ten li hanefesh v'rechush kachlach, just give me the people, you keep all the booty. He recognized everything belonged to Avraham Avinu. So what happened? 5 minutes later, again, they go back to normal. Yeah? Now, the truth is, this phenomenon actually happens every single day. How many times does it happen that people, they come in terms of distress? They need a miracle. They need a salvation. And all of a sudden, they start doing a teshuvah that you look at them and you say, wow, these guys are mamash balei teshuvah. They come, they start keeping Shabbat, they start praying in the minyan, they start doing this, and they really need the salvation. And all of a sudden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers them, and what happens? Immediately they go back to their old ways. And you ask themselves, 1 second, they didn't need it beforehand? They didn't recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was one that answered them? They really didn't need that salvation? For sure they needed it. And they got it. So then why all of a sudden they're going back to their old ways? What's going on? If Hashem answered you, keep up to it, live up to it. Why all of a sudden they're going to go back? They're going to regress instead of becoming better. And the answer that we're going to answer is a very important answer, which is in one of the fundamentals in human nature, which is as follows. The answer is that a person that gets accustomed to a certain type of midot, to a certain type of attributes, to a certain type of a way of living, it is so difficult for them to change. And therefore, when they really need something, and when they're in a time of despair, or sometimes all of a sudden they get these feelings of sensations that they become spiritually on a high, and all of a sudden they want to come and they want to do teshuvah, perfect. But the difficulty is that if we don't continue working on ourselves, automatically we go down to our nature. We go down to becoming the people who we truly are. And therefore, it's so important for us to realize, because Anshe Sedom V'Amorah, why? They were people that were full of desires, full of lust, full of everything that you wanted. So what happened? How do we know that? Even Lot said it. Lot comes, and why did he go there? Says the Midrash, it's based upon a pasuk in Mishleh, the Gemara Nazir says it, L'ta'ava yivakesh nifrad. Avraham Avinu has his shepherds have an argument with Lot's shepherds. Lot's shepherds were stealing. And what does he do? He justifies it. He says, listen, what do you want? At the end of the day, everything's going to become to us. So what happens? Avraham Avinu says, you know what? We don't want machloket. We don't want fights. Very simple. You go one way, I go the other way. Lot decides to go to Sedom. Why does he decide to go to Sedom? Says the Gemara, L'ta'ava yivakesh nifrad. He wanted to go after desires. He wanted to go after his eyes. He had a beautiful plains. It had everything. Yeah, but there were people that they didn't do any chesed. There was antithesis of Avraham Avinu. There were people that they went and they were doing all the terrible things in the world. He didn't really care. He went after his desires. And that was Sedom V'Amorah.
But Rabbi, question, with Lot, he grew up with Abraham. So how suddenly he was pulled to that side when all his life he saw the other,
Very good.
We talk about it with the Haredim, they try to keep like a bubble so they don't, to protect them. So how come here didn't work?
Very good. So listen carefully. We're going to answer that question. 1 second. Okay. So you see from here that the entire concept is that sometimes people come and they serve an avodah zarah. What is the avodah zarah? The yetzer hara. The evil inclination which is inside of us is one of the biggest avodah zarahs that we have. One of the biggest idols that we have. Because what does idolatry mean? What does it mean, idolatry? Think about it. You know what idolatry means? It's avodah el zar. El zar means something strange to Hashem. We, in essence, the yetzer hara, the evil inclination which is inside of us, many times he wants to do those things. He wants to purposely come and he wants to serve a type of something which is against the nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore he goes and he does whatever his heart desires. But now we have to understand that's with everything that we're talking about now. What about Lot now? Let's try to understand what happened with Lot. Because that was Maurice's question. What happened with Lot? Where did he go wrong? Yeah? And Kam Chachamim, and they say as follows. They say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha. Go from your land, the beginning of the parasha. Go from your land, desert yourself, go away from everything. Perfect. Do you realize that it's not written anyone except for who? Lot separately. What does that mean? Let us try to analyze, okay? HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha me'artzecha. What is me'artzecha? From your land. Yeah? Mimolatecha, from your birthplace. Umibet avicha, and from the house of your father. Asks Rav Chasman, this is the rabbi of Rav Shimon Shodron. He comes and he asks, shouldn't it be the opposite? Think about it. If I'm going to tell you now to leave, whether it's going to be London, Miami, New York, wherever you're going to leave, what are you first going to leave? You leave your house. After you leave your house, you're going to leave your neighborhood, your birthplace, where you grew up. Then you live your city and your country. Why is it written the exact opposite? Why is it written the exact opposite? First, it's written, you're going to leave, right? It says over here, first you're going to leave your land. Then you're going to leave your birthplace. Then you're going to leave your father's house. How does that mean? How does that work? It's the exact opposite. And listen to the beautiful answer. A lot of us, we didn't even realize that. If you pay attention, everyone learns it. Even in children, we learn, Lech Lecha, go from your land, me'artzecha, from your land. What's going on? It's the exact opposite. And he says an incredible message. And he says like this. In physicality, your physical being, you're right. You first leave your father's house, then you're going to leave your birthplace, and you're going to leave your city and your country. 100%. Spirituality, it's the exact opposite. If I want to take you out of an influence that you had, it's much easier for me to disconnect you from your country's customs than your birthplace's customs. It's much easier for me to disconnect you from where your birthplace was than from your father's house. Because since you are much more connected, those customs, those midot, those attributes, everything which is instilled in your blood, that's inside of you, it's much more difficult for me to pull you out. Physically, you're right. In 2 seconds, it's opposite. You first leave your father's house. But to do with spirituality, to do with your midot, it's the last thing that I could take out of you. I could first change you, and I could take you from London and take you to America, and I'm going to stop you having tea time. Why? Because there's no time in America for tea time. Yeah? But for me to come and to change a custom of what you've lived through your entire life, not only just a custom, you see, they're having tea even when we're speaking. Yeah? He says, even what's happening is, don't worry, I'm a British citizen also. I'm British. Yeah? I'm Gibraltarian, but I'm a British citizen. Okay, so it says over here, so what happens is that all of a sudden to take them out of their father's custom, that's much more difficult. So now what's going on exactly? How does this actually explain to us a lot of different things? So he says, really, be'emet, you should know that Lot, he was only brought up with it, but it was very easy for him to separate from it. Now, why? He says, you know why? Listen to this very carefully. Avraham Avinu, he leaves his birthplace, he leaves everything. Who does he take with him? He takes Lot, right? And he takes his wife, and everybody that he converted, everybody that he had in Haran. Now, if you realize, why does it single out Lot? Obviously, it's going to tell me he took him, his wife, and even everybody else with him. 100%. Even Eliezer, that was the most trustworthy servant of Avraham Avinu, that we're going to see in the next parashiot, the most trustworthy servant of Avraham Avinu, a person that he was mamash, his doleu mashke, he was his rosh yeshiva, he was his accountant, he was everything to Avraham Avinu. Yeah? Even an Eliezer was only just included in everybody that he brought with Haran. Why is it that Lot was singled out? Why Lot was separate? Just say, Avraham Avinu took his wife and everybody with him. Why was Lot written separately? And explain Chachamim, you know why? Because very simple. Lot, from the beginning, never annulled himself to Avraham Avinu. He was always separate. Even though they're traveling together, even though we're going in the same direction, I'm always separate. I always have my own agenda. I'm never annulled to Avraham Avinu. Eliezer annulled himself. I am nothing. Avraham Avinu is my master. I am nothing. Lot was always separate. And by the way, you should know this happens many times. Sometimes you could have, whether it's in a company, that you have a company and there's the boss. But you always have someone that even though he's working in the company, he's always separate. No matter what, he's always doing his own thing. Everyone's together, he's always the one separate.
Let me ask you something, Rabbi. If you see somebody, if I'm hanging out with somebody and I see that somebody has always better have because I'm seeing it physically, everything that's going on, why would I want to separate from that person? If I see that person has better have, I want to stay with that person because something might spill on my side.
The truth is, until now, that's exactly what happened. But Lot saw more beracha. You have to remember, what happened is Lot received all the beracha because of Avraham Avinu. The second all of a sudden that Avraham Avinu tells him we have to separate, where's he going? Where's he going to look? Whereas his eye sees more beracha. He saw the city of Sedom and he said, wow, it's a land flowing of milk and honey. It's got everything. It's got kula mashke, it's got for the properties, it's got for everything. So he says, that's where I want to go. His eyes turned him astray. He had to separate, because Avraham Avinu told him you have to separate. But you have to remember one thing. Even when he separated, he thought he was his own rabbi. And by the way, I gave you the example of a company, but it could happen with anything. Sometimes it happens within the same family, that everybody's together in the family, and then there's one person, always separate. Sometimes it can happen in a Bet Knesset. Everyone's together, always one person, separate. He always does his own agenda. He always does his own things. Such a person that he doesn't annul himself to the head, whether it's the head of a company, the head of the Bet Knesset, the head of the family, the head of whatever it is, that's the biggest danger. Because what happens is he completely disconnects and then he completely gets lost. And that's exactly what happened with Lot. Lot, that's exact same thing that happened with Lot. Lot completely got lost. Because once he came and he started separating himself, that's it. He became disconnected. And he was actually disconnected from it. Now, what happens is that...
Sorry, Rabbi. Sorry to interrupt. So here we see a case where somebody got disconnected, but let's go to the case of Yosef. Yosef, not by his own will, but he got disconnected completely for so many years, and he always stayed on the path. So why such a big difference then?
Because
they both come from the same kind of school.
Yosef worked on himself. You have to remember there were many times in history that people were disconnected completely. They were completely separated. They were sent into exile. They were sent into, but they continued on the path. Here, Lot, from the beginning, was never there. He only did that which he mimicked from Avraham Avinu, but it wasn't an internal working. You have to understand that we have to realize that we have to internalize, and we always have to work on ourselves. And that's going to be the entire shoot today. Because if not, a lot of the things are external. But if we don't internalize them, they're never actually with us. They're completely on the outside. And then what happens is that it could be that maybe now we're fulfilling them because we're within a certain group, within a certain family, within a certain upbringing. But then all of a sudden, we take them out of that equation, and now that's it. It completely disconnects from them. And therefore, that's why the message has to be that we have to work on ourselves, on everything. Never think that we're perfect. We're never perfect, but we have to work upon ourselves. So here, listen to this. It says over here, how do we build ourselves? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha. What does he tell him? La'anatecha u'tovatecha. For your good and for your benefit. For your good and for your benefit. What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean for your good and for your benefit? And listen to this because it's very deep, but it's something incredible. Listen carefully. Yeah, when I come and I'm going to do chesed, in essence, what am I doing? So I'm doing two different things at the same time. Number one, I'm building the world. I come and I give you chesed, or I do chesed for a poor person and I give them something. I'm building the world, correct? That's what we're doing. We're builders. We build the world. The world was built on chesed. But there's another thing also as well. The second thing is we built ourselves. So not only are we building the world, we have become better people. We start becoming anshe chesed, people that are courteous, people that do chesed, that do kindness. That's what we become. It becomes part of our essence. The question that we ask ourselves, what's more important? Is it more important? We're doing both in the same action. I come and I'm doing chesed. But what's more important? That I'm building the world or that I'm building myself? That's the question. No? What do you guys say?
I think it's yourself.
First, actually.
Yourself? Jimmy, I couldn't hear you. Or somebody said something else.
Sammy mentioned something as well.
Sammy, what did you say?
Goldie.
Well, I said the opposite of what Goldie said. I said it's actually the world, because otherwise, if you're building yourself, then you're back to your Yatsara, and you're doing it as you're idolizing yourself, in a sense, because you're only doing for your own satisfaction to elevate your own piety, right?
Okay,
How can you build the world if you don't build yourself? First, you need to build yourself to be able to help somebody else.
No.
Yeah, if you build yourself, you're influencing the world around you. You're becoming a Kiddush Hashem, and therefore inspiring everyone, and that helps you grow even more. I think if you help yourself, you'll help everyone around you.
Okay, one second. We heard both sides of the spectrum. Jimmy, what do you say?
I would say, I would agree with Mauricio. I think that you have to change in order to change the world.
Okay, you change yourself. And who's that? That's your father-in-law, no, Mauricio?
Yeah, Leon Dweck.
Leon. What do you say?
You're on mute.
On
He
mute.
says, how do I turn on my microphone?
Ah,
Sorry.
it says unmute. 1 second. I could ask to unmute also. Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
I'd say I agree with what they're saying. You're building yourself for the better of the world, not just for
Okay.
yourself.
Very good. So
On
listen.
my own.
Okay, so now everyone go on mute and I'll listen to the answer. It says over here like this. The word Lech Lecha, the word go for yourself, tells you that the Ikar by HaKadosh Baruch Hu is for you, for ourselves, to build ourselves. Now, why is this based on? We know Avraham Avinu was called Ish Chesed, a person of doing Chesed, and a person that does Chesed is called a Chassid. A person that does Chesed is called a Chassid. The Gemara brings down that if a person wants to become a Chassid, what should he do? He should be Osek in Chesed. He should do a lot of Chesed. So says the Zohar HaKadosh, Ezu Chassid, who's considered a Chassid? Hamit Chased in Kono. Somebody that does Chesed with his creator, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, 1 second. How do you do Chesed with Hashem? Hashem needs Chesed? Like, what's going on? And listen to this. I said again one more time. I'm going to repeat. It's deep, but it's something beautiful. Listen carefully. He said, there's only one thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot do for us. Not because he cannot physically or spiritually. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all powerful, but that he does not do for us. And what is that? He does not change us. We have to work upon ourselves. Hakol mishamayim chutz mirat shamayim. Everything comes from Hashem. Everything. It could be monetary things, money, everything that you want, right? Sickness is anything. Everything comes from Hashem, except for fear of God. Anything spiritual comes from us. We do it ourselves. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we cannot come and say, listen, you want to become more religious? Bezrat Hashem, with the help of Hashem. No, not with the help of Hashem, with your help. You have to want to do it. If you want to become a millionaire, that's with the help of Hashem. But to become more religious, that's you. You, me, every single one of us. There's nobody that's going to change that.
But Rabbi, I understand that, but my question to you is the following.
One second. Let me finish explaining, and then we could continue. One second. So now what happens? Is like this. The only way that we could do chesed with Hashem is by giving him something that he himself does not do. What is that? Chesed. When we come and we complete ourselves, we come and we fix ourselves, we become better people, we become people that we're growing and we continue spiritually growing, that is the only thing that Hashem does not do for us. And therefore, we are doing chesed with Hashem. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha, not to build the world. Because the truth is, I don't care about the world. Lech Lecha for yourself. Lecha for you. I want you to move, to go somewhere else, to build yourself, to build your spirituality, to build who you are, your essence, the person that you are, your personality. That's what I want. Everything else will follow suit. But the first and utmost, more important thing is to build ourselves. Afterwards, everything will come into place. What did you want to ask, Mauricio?
Two questions. One, first, what I wanted to ask before is, I understand what you said, that it's up to somebody to try to improve himself spiritually and to grow. But for somebody that grew up in a completely non-religious environment, nothing with Torah, the challenge is 10 times, like he doesn't even have a path to get in there. Like, for example, if you live in a religious world or in at least a traditional home, you have a path a little bit, you understand what's in there. But if you've never seen it, it's going to be almost impossible for you to do that. So that's the first question. And the second question that it just came out, which is what you just finished, when he says, just for you, Lech Lecha, leave. We always understand that we as Jews, we should not go like the monks, that they go to a monastery in the middle of the mountain on their own and work on yourself and, be separated from the world. It's the opposite. It's okay, work on yourself, but you have to live in this world and you have to bring that. So in a way, it doesn't contradict that when Hashem says, Lech Lecha, you go and fix yourself, and he's pulling him out of an environment that might not be good for him. But in a way, you can say, okay, he's telling him, go on your own and be on your own and fix yourself, and then we'll see what happens.
So to answer both questions, I'm going to first answer the second question. The second question, when he comes and he tells you, Lech Lecha, go for yourself, he's not telling him to go into the desert or into a cave. He's just telling him he has to detach himself from his father's house. Why? Because where he is right now, it's not a good place. And therefore, it actually teaches us throughout all generations, never be in a scenario where you are surrounded by a very negative influence. That's number one. But he's not telling him to go to the caves or anything else. But now, are you supposed to work on yourself? Yes. And you should work on yourself before working on other people. Okay, so that's the answer question number two. To answer question number one, you reminded me of another Dvar Torah, which I'm going to say as follows. The other Dvar Torah is that in the beginning of this week's parasha as well, and it's connected mamash. I just read it last night, I think it was. It said over there, Lech Lecha, and then afterwards, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes right after Lech Lecha, and he says, I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to make your name great. He says, when he says, I'm going to bless you and make your name great, it says, V'nivrechu vecha. What does it mean we're going to make a bracha through you? Becha chotmin. With you, we're going to finish, right? We're going to finish what? The blessings. How do we see that? Says Rashi, Magen Abraham. And therefore, the first blessing in Amidah that every single Jew says 3 times a day is the blessing of Magen Abraham. Because we finished, that means even though we started Relocate Abraham, Relocate Yitzchak, Relocate Yaakov, all the God of all three forefathers, we finished with you. The first blessing is parallel, is in correlation to Abraham Avinu. And that's why we speak about there, Chesed, V'zocher Chastei Avot, Umevi Goel, and Magen Abraham. Magen Abraham is in this week's parasha. Magen, right? Anochi Magen Lach, I am going to protect you. Everything is to do with Abraham Avinu. Perfect. However, though, there was a question that they ask, and they say, what does it mean, Becha Chotmin? With you, you're going to finish. With you, you're going to finish. What does that mean? You're going to finish what? You understand? It's only the first blessing of the Amidah. What does it mean with you, you're finishing? So I don't remember now which one of the Gdolim they said it. I don't know if it was an Netziv. I don't remember who was that said, Becha Chotmin, in your merit, we're going to finish the Galut. Meaning, we're going to finish exile. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he comes and he says, what does that mean with you, you're going to finish the exile? During the time of then, there was a time of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he was seeing, it was at the beginning of the war, he saw how the youngsters were leaving the religion. And he saw that it was crazy, that they were completely leaving everything of the religion. They had nothing what to do then. So he went and he said, how are they going to come back? How is it that you're going to have a generation that they're going to do teshuvah? What's going to happen exactly? And what's going to happen with their children and continue going? And he said, Becha Chotmin. What does it mean, Becha Chotmin? The youngster, right, what happened was, this was a shiur of Arachim. And in a shiur of Arachim, he went and they told them about all the dangers of what it is, technology and everything, and all the dangers that we have around us. And they said that this generation has the biggest temptations and the biggest trials and tribulations than all of history. And that's why if we pass the test, we will see the Mashiach. So one of the youngsters says, how could you come and say we're going to see the Mashiach? If the Mashiach didn't come during the times of all those great rabbis in the previous generations, you think it's going to come now? You think we are the ones that we're ready for it? And he said, no, because of this answer. He says, what does that mean? He says, what's going to happen is there's going to come during the time of the Mashiach, at the end of days, where we say in the pasuk, "Ve'shiv levavot al banim, ve'lev banim al avotam," which means that we're going to make that the children are going to make their parents become more religious. Now, if you think about that, since when did that happen in history? It doesn't exist. The parents were always much more religious, and they wanted their children to follow suit. But because of Yeridat Adorot, because of the degrading of the generations, that the generations keep on becoming worse and worse and debasing themselves and becoming, right? So what happens? All of a sudden, it becomes worse and worse. So every generation, they lose, right? And you see that. But all of a sudden, at the time of the Mashiach, we're going to find ourselves looking at ourselves and all of a sudden seeing something incredible, where you see that the children, which they had nothing to guide them, all of a sudden they do teshuvah. And from that teshuvah, they bring everybody to do teshuvah. And there they bring a story that happened in Arachim of a girl, right? That what happened was that there was a father, her father, his brother, he went to do teshuvah. And the brother was very upset. So he stopped doing kiddush, he stopped doing everything. So they completely separated from each other. Completely. He separated from each other. Why? The brother became Shomer Shabbat. He didn't want to keep Shabbat. Completely separate. This is happening in Eretz Yisrael. I think it was in Tel Aviv, wherever it was. And all of a sudden, his own daughter was Chozeret B'Teshuvah at the age of 14. What happens is the father gets so upset, he doesn't know how to live with it. He starts telling her off. He starts promising her the world. He'll give her everything that she wants. Nothing budges. Every single day, Friday, she comes and she cooks her own food. And she puts on a little plata, and the food on the plata, she goes. She has to walk an hour to go to the Bet Knesset. She goes to the Bet Knesset and she listens to a shiur. She comes back home to eat. Every single Friday night, she comes back, and what happens? The plata is disconnected. She sits down and she eats cold food. Every single time they're coming, they're laughing at her, and she's singing her own songs. He said after 2 years that she continues and nothing budges and nothing moves, and she's just going. She's akshanit, she's stubborn, she's not going to give in. They broke. and they went to a seminary. They went to a seminar of Arachim. And he said, and because of that, they were Choser B'Tshuva. He said it was only the stubbornness of the youth where they saw nothing. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu always shows you the path. He shows you the light. Avraham Avinu, it's brought down in the Midrash that he found HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Bala Bira, as if that all of a sudden the light was turned on. And he said, 1 second, who turned on the light? Obviously, if somebody turned on the light, there's a God here, there's someone here. It cannot be the sun, because the sun comes out in the morning, but then it goes back down, and I don't see the sun. It can be the moon, because the moon comes up, but then it goes back down. What can it be? There has to be a God. And that's where he recognizes creator. And here in our generation, even though you think that it could be that 1 second, if they have nothing, no, they see it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, throughout all of creation, he'll come and he'll show us his signs. All we have to do is open up our eyes to see the messages. There's a book of Rabbi Frand I always mention that he says, listen to your messages. Every single person.
Very good. I bought it. I started reading it 2 weeks ago.
You started reading it. Baruch Hashem. Very good. Incredible that he says, in every single generation throughout life, you come and you see it. And it's written, you see the messages. You just have to keep your eyes open.
But Rabbi, in the past, the messages were straight, like they were open miracles, were straight, like there's no way like you cannot get the message. And people didn't see it. People didn't see it.
Every day of your life. The only thing is you have to look for them. I'm going to tell you something. I have a doctor in my kihlah. Yeah, an incredible doctor. Person, Irat Shamayim and everything that you want. Yeah, he had a certain problem. So he goes to another doctor. Obviously, it wasn't his profession. He goes to another professional, another doctor, a friend of his. He tells him, listen, you need to take antibiotics and this is dangerous and this and that. It was dealing with something which was dangerous. So he didn't want to take it as a joke. He comes and he wants to go to a specialist, which is even a bigger specialist than the one that he just went to. So he goes to him, tells him, listen, can you see me? Yeah, come in. Fine. He's learning a book, an incredible book of the Beta Levi in English. Beta Levi on Emunah and Bitachon, on belief of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there, the Emunah, the Beta Levi comes and he's reading, and there it says, never be upset on the money that you give to tzedakah. Never feel bad about it. He says, why? Because that money was never yours. And that's the way that you have to look like it. You have to look at it. You have to have that perspective in life that money is not yours. So what, you're going to be upset about it? The opposite, I'm happy to give it away. Here it is. So you give it away. He's reading those words, and all of a sudden it clicks in his brain. A few months previous, what happened is he went to Eretz Israel. We're talking about around 9-10 months before. And he went to a certain place, and he committed to giving them $100 a month. And he wrote out checks, $100 every single month for the year. Fine, okay, no problem. After a few months, there was a balagan, there was a big problem with one of his accounts. He closed the account. All of a sudden, you close the account, the check is gonna bounce. The check bounced. It was the beginning, middle of the virus. He didn't have the head for it. He ignored the message. Yeah, fine. Another month, again, ignore the message. A week before he went to this doctor, again he got the message. And again he ignored it. He's reading this book, and all of a sudden he sees it, and it clicks. He stops right away. There in the doctor's office, he sends a text. I'm very sorry, I didn't have time to take care of this. How much do I still owe you? Right away, the guy comes, answers back, right? You owe $600. He says right away, I'm going to write you a check, a new check of the $600 complete, and I'm mailing it out. I'm mailing it out to you. He says, no problem. Refuah shelema. The person's looking, okay. He walks into the doctor, no problem with him. He walks out. He calls him up and he tells him, why in the world did you tell me refuah shelema? He told him, I don't know. Hashem just put it in my mind to write it to you. I have no idea. You think he knew he was sick? Not sick. We're not talking about a sickness. He's got the machala. He's got some. He had a problem in his eye. And obviously the eyes are very important because the person could lose the eyesight. But you think the guy knew? Nothing. The balabai, the doctor came to me and he goes to me, Rabbi, I'm telling you this story. Listen to this. You see the messages day in and day out. But we have to keep our eyes open. A lot of us won't even pay attention. Or would say, Rabbi, beautiful story. But then you continue in life. Pay attention to the messages. Hashem sends us messages every single day. Many times they could be bigger messages, smaller messages. Somebody comes and they say a certain remark. And you think to yourself, why did they say such a thing? Why did they say such a thing? You remember the story that we brought down Rabbi Eliezer ben Nurdia, that a woman, that she was a promiscuous woman, a lowlife, she comes and she told him something. He took it to his heart, he completed it, he completely changed his entire life. But what do you want? Somebody's going to come and tell you something. What do you care? But the answer is no. If somebody's telling you something, they are the vehicle from Hashem to tell it to you. Pay attention. Realize what they're telling it to you. Realize what they're saying. But we have to understand that. And that, in essence, is the yesod that we have to understand here. Every single one of us, we have to understand, right? We have to realize that that's our mission in life. Build ourselves. Even if we're going to be attached to an Avraham Avinu, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. Because the second that we separate, for whatever reason it could be, like Mauricio said, it could be whether it's honest force majeure, that we had to leave, it could be anything. But no, if we're not going to continue building ourselves, we just go back to being the Lot that we were beforehand. So you're right, when Lot was with Avraham Avinu, he was a big tzaddik. But no, the mission in life is being a tzaddik without the Avraham Avinu. Being a tzaddik for ourselves. Do chesed with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by building ourselves. Do chesed with ourselves. Chesed starts at home. How do you do chesed at home? Build ourselves. Build yourself. That's the best thing that we could do. And then afterwards, we could build other people. Many times we want to build the worlds. We want to build everything outside, externally, everything on the outside. But what about ourselves? And that's our message that we have to get from Parashat Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha letovatecha ulanatecha. For your own good and for your own benefit. It's for you. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling it to him. I'm doing this for you. I'll just finish off with a beautiful message, right? Because we always love doing things for Shalom Bayit. Yeah, for interpersonal relationships, but especially with wives, because it's very, very important. Yeah, with our other half. Yeah, or we always say the better half, right? And we have to say as follows. Listen to this carefully. Avraham Avinu comes, and then Etziv asks this question. He comes and he tells Sarai Imenu, listen, I realize that you're so beautiful. We're going to Mitzrayim, and we're going to go to Mitzrayim now, right? What's going to happen is that they're going to kill me, right? They're going to let you live. Yeah, they're going to give you all the prep, but they're going to kill me, and then they're going to let you live. As an Etziv, I understand the entire part that they're going to kill me. Okay. Why does it have to say they're going to let you live? And then for what? Obviously, they're going to let you live. They want to live with you. So what does that mean? What are those words, right? What does those words say, right? And for you, you're going to stay living. What do you mean? So comes and he says like this. He says, everything that you do, even if it's going to be what you're talking about Shalom Bayit, there's three different ways of saying it. There's a person that's going to come and he's going to say, you know what? Please make me a tea. Yeah? Make me a tea. Okay, fine. He said, please. At least it's not that bad. Fine. Another person will come and say, you know what? Make me a tea. But while you're doing it, make two. So that way we can both drink together. Okay, that might sound even better. The third one will come and say, you know what, honey? Please make me a tea. Because when you make it, it tastes even better. What's the difference between all three? Yeah? He says the third one, what did you do? You made her feel like $1 million. You make her feel it's for her. Avraham Avinu, he comes and he receives gifts from Paro. Why does he receive gifts from Paro? In 2 minutes later in the parasha, we're reading the parasha, he comes and he tells the king of Sedom, I don't want a penny from you. You know why? I don't want you to say that you made me rich. I don't want a penny. It's his. He went out to war. He won it. It's his booty. It belongs to him. I don't want you to ever say that it's yours. Take it back. Paro, he receives all the money happily. What's going on? You know why? He received it because it was from Sarah. Because of Sarah, his wife, he received it. Because now she could say for the rest of her life, I made my husband rich. My husband's rich because Paro gave it to him because of me. That he's going to accept. That it's going to be for her, everything. For myself, no. It once happened that there were two rabbanim together. They were going to go into a bet midrash. And one rabbi tells the other, listen, you know what? Why don't we go through the side door? So that way people don't have to stand up. He went and he said, I'm sorry, I apologize. I have to go through the main door, that everyone should stand up. So the rabbi thought, and he said, but why? He said, because my wife is in the crowd. And when she's going to see how much kavod they give me, it's going to make her feel good. It's going to make her feel like $1 million. For ourselves, that's one thing. But for someone else to make them feel like $1 million, and that's why he says, Avraham Avinu comes and he says, that they're going to kill me, no big deal. But what's going to happen to you? You're going to live without a husband for the rest of your life. So therefore, please say that you're my sister, not to save me, for your benefit, for you. That's what he wants to say. It's an incredible yesod, because I'm going to speak about it on Shabbat, that it's written in the Gemara that all the wealth that comes to a human being comes because of the zechut of his wife. How much does he respect his wife? But that we learn from Avraham Avinu. And that it's always for you. It's not for me. And if you actually learn this, this will actually benefit in everything. But it's not only in Shalom Bayit. How many times does it happen that you come and you give your friend advice? And when you give them advice, you're going to tell them, listen, do A, B, C, and D. They're not going to listen. Right? You're going to tell them, it's for you. All of a sudden they're going to listen. Why? Because now the person recognized and realized, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for you. If it's for him, now it's for me. You know what? Maybe it's better that way. You're right. Maybe now let me think about it. But again, it's all how we actually put the perspective and how we're actually looking into it. We for sure have to build ourselves. However, though, it's our obligation to make other people feel like $1 million as well. And that's why when we talk about the Shalom Bayit as well, it's always to do with you, with Sarai Menu. For Sarai Menu, he does everything. But for himself, it might be something else. Okay? Bezrat Hashem, we continue next week.